That Mental Health Chat.
You start to feel sorry for yourself, and you something like that happens, you don't know what to feel anyway. I'm angry at me for what's happened. Do you get angry at him? What do you feel? And it was just so confusing and so overwhelming that I thought, I need to be active. So like I said, I was straight back into work, but in between all that, it was bottles of red wine to help me sleep, because I'm sleeping, but I've got the lights on, and every time I close my eyes, you're hearing that noise and you're seeing it, and it's horrendous.
Yeah.
So I was put on all sorts of medication and given people to talk to and all these things, but I think unless you've been in that situation, it's so difficult to explain. Even now, I can't really explain it.
That Mental Health Chat, a podcast brought to you by the mental health charity Back Onside.
Hi and welcome to another episode of That Mental Health Chat in association with Back Onside. We've had a wee break, but we're glad to be back, and in this episode I'm delighted to be joined by Kurt Heard, who is currently a youth coach at Livingston. So thanks for joining us, Kurt.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Not a problem. So first of all, what we'll do is we'll do a wee introduction. Tell us a wee bit about yourself, Kurt, and then we'll talk a wee bit about obviously kind of experiences with mental health and take it from there.
Yeah,
all right?
absolutely, no
Sound
problem.
Good?
Well,
So a wee bit of background to yourself, if that's all right.
No problem. So we'll take it back to the start. So it was just a regular upbringing in Dundee. Mum, dad, brother, sister, and myself. I'm the oldest. Like I say, regular upbringing, football mad all the way through.
Right.
Kicked the ball everywhere I went, and as I went into high school, joined Dundee United. As it wasn't quite the youth academies that you have now, where you're going. It was more like a satellite. So I was training with Dundee United, still playing with the boys' clubs. From there, I went on to Aberdeen. Aberdeen had a satellite school in Dundee, and I remember being at Aberdeen, and the first night I went in, there was a big bag of kit sitting there, and the coach said, any training kit, if you want it. I was fully kitted anyway.
Yeah.
And bold as brass went in there, took the full Aberdeen kit on, only one as well.
Yeah.
I thought I was the man. And after that, he got handed a wee brown envelope with a couple of £1 in it. I felt on top of the world. I went to school the next day telling my mates, that's me, professional, getting paid to play football and stuff. But as I went on, didn't quite have the ability or the mindset to become a professional football player. So it was coaching for me. Started coaching early doors at 15, 16. Just started with a local club. Gradually built that into Dundee United in the community. Went and got my education at college, went and got my HND. Then I decided it was time to move on, and pastures new. Went to Australia at a young age.
So what age did you go there at?
So I was 18,
Right.
just 18 when I went to Australia. I just came out of college, and I couldn't really see the opportunity here to go into the professional game. And even at 18, I backed myself. So I thought, I'll go for it. I got on a flight to Australia, went and stayed with my grand's friend,
Right.
for the first wee while. Thankfully, she was nice enough to put me up in Brisbane. Got myself a job on the Gold Coast. Lived the dream. Absolutely lived the dream.
Similar climate to Dundee, is it? The Gold Coast.
Yeah, Broughty Ferry Beach. Yeah, absolutely loved that. Brisbane and the Gold Coast, it was brilliant. I managed to get myself. I was working for a franchise, and they were branching out, so they went down into the Central Coast, and I was tasked with heading that up. So didn't quite realise the size of Australia when I packed the van up, drove down to the Central Coast from Brisbane, thinking a couple of hours maybe. Right. 12 hours later, I was stopping to check the map. Still had another couple of hours left. But that was what an experience that was for me. I taught myself how to cook, clean, live by myself, share a house with the guys. It was grew up fast.
Yeah.
That was fantastic, and then it was a case of coming back, and it was much the same coming back. The opportunities weren't there as such. I worked for box soccer schools. They're still going strong now, box soccer schools, and I went into Dundee United at the entry level. I did that for a while, and it was again one of those knocking on doors. Couldn't find my way in, so it was university. I went to university, and that's where it all really started for me. So I went to university, and because I had that HND in sports coaching, I went into third year, and I seen that they were looking for a head coach for the university team. And I thought, I'm going to go for it. I've never worked with people older than me, people the same age as me. At this point, I was 24 years old, going into university, so still relatively young to take that on. Playing in the 1A, the top league in Scotland, with your Edinburgh Stirlings, Heriot Watt. I guess some of these boys were playing for Montrose, Alway, Forfar. These guys were playing at a really good level, and I sort of put myself in that position and had to back myself really. Yeah. And we had a great year. We won the league. We won 1A, qualified us for the British, and the boys got a good trip down to Liverpool in the playoff out of that one.
No doubt.
And that was after that. I sort of said to myself, that's probably in the back of my head. I'm saying to myself, I'm never going to top this. So, it was one of the boys in the team had mentioned to me, look, my junior team. We're looking for a manager. Why don't you go for it? So I did. I applied for it. Got asked to go into the stadium, if you will, to the park. Met the committee, met the coaches there, and went for that. That was again, what an experience. I've went from there to now. I'm dealing with finances, and I'm dealing with
and more than just the kind of coaching aspect
it's
of the game.
So much more than the coaching. Boys are coming to me and talking to me about things that are going on way out of football. And I'm having to juggle all this. And it was fantastic. It was really good. Absolutely loved it. And from there, I moved on to another junior team that were playing in the Super League at the time as assistant manager. Assistant manager's a wee bit more fun than being a manager yourself. You can
slightly less responsibility.
Responsibility. Yeah, have a wee bit of banter with the boys and the likes. But again, it was one of those where, because I'd stepped up, the level of player had stepped up, and I was working with players that came from that played SPL, that played Premier League football, ex-youth internationals, and saying to me, pinching myself almost, I couldn't believe it, working at that level. And again, that's when I started to really back myself. It's one of those situations, a football changing room, it's so dog eat dog, and any sign of weakness at all. So especially as a coach, as a player, there's 18, 20,
As
a coach,
pretty much.
As a coach, there's me and maybe one other. So you really do have to stand by your guns. And
well, it's interesting, and sorry to butt in, but just when you said earlier on, one of the things you mentioned, like early doors, when you thought you maybe weren't going to quite cut it as a player, you said I maybe didn't have the right mindset, but to have the mindset to be able to take yourself to Australia at 18, it's a massive jump, and to put yourself in all these positions where, as you said, that you have to have a bit of character, you've got to have a bit about yourself to back yourself to go in these positions. So you've obviously, the mindset's definitely there.
Yeah, I mean, I've no doubt at all that it was there. It was how do you tap into that thought, I was young, naive, probably hung around with the wrong people, probably spent my weekends doing the wrong things. Nothing, it wasn't conducive to an elite or a professional mentality at the time. probably by the time I realised that, it was too late to turn it around. The next best thing was coaching. There was no doubt for me at all that I had to stay in the game. That's all I know, it's all I love. So staying in the game was the game was all I had, to be fair. And yeah, that time at Downfield in the juniors was great, fantastic, huge learning curve for me. And again, I took that step. I was still at Dundee United at the time, and I was really pushing with my experience, and I'd really invested in myself with my coaching badges. So I was really pushing to move up through the academy, and it just wasn't happening. And again, I just took the jump, took the gamble, and a good friend of mine was working as head of youth at Dundee, and he said to me, "Look, we've got the 16s here, I've got a good team, but I need a coach." Now, moving to Dundee isn't something that I'd ever considered, but again, stepping back and looking at it had to be done.
Yeah.
And I sort of had a bit between my teeth as well in proving a point to Dundee United that I know I can do it. I know I've got the ability. So that was the next step for me, and that with going to the 16s sort of meant a more, full-time sort of setup. So left the juniors, focused on Dundee. And, the majority of the players that are now on the verge of the first team, still keep in contact with them just now. Great set of guys, great set of coaches. Really enjoyed my time there. But it was on the B licence. I'd spoke to somebody and they were telling me, Malaysia. I was like, Malaysia, I'm pretty sure I stopped over there on the way to Australia. What's it like? Seen it from the airport, but seen the skyline. Mate, brilliant. You need, this is the setup, this is what we do. I'm the technical director. I was thinking, right, okay, I'll keep him with this guy. He's clued up. So it was just one night lying in bed. Obviously the big man was unaware of the time difference because he phoned me at about 5 in the morning. 5 in the morning, woke me up before work, and so excited. But I've spoke to the guy that runs the club, and we've got a space here for you. We want you to come over, see it, get a feel for it for a week. If you like it, you'll come back. This was November, so this was, a week before Christmas. I want you to come out, and we'll fly out New Year. So that was that. Went over and I've said it, but I always back myself. I'll always give it a go. So that was, and there was a few things going on at the time as well back home where I thought, you know what, I really needed a fresh start. So went for that, and just my luck that as the day I was flying out, January the 3rd, I was flying out. I've been waiting the whole time. I was at the hospital right until the last minute. My sister gave birth to my niece.
Oh, is that right?
So I seen her the second I landed in KL airport. I got a FaceTime off her, a couple of hours old, and I thought, this is going to be tough.
Aye, yeah.
Away from home, completely different culture socially, in terms of football as well. Completely different culture. I really struggled the first 2-3 months because I thought I could go over there and the things that I've put into practice here, the things that I've done here would translate. Just put it straight in, and it's not like that at all. And I got a lot of fight back, and it was hard to really get across what I was wanting.
In terms of the style that you wanted to coach, is that what you mean? Yeah.
So I mean, on the pitch, off the pitch, it's a completely different. It's so alien to me. Off the pitch, education for them is everything.
Yeah.
And I'm working at I'm trying to work at with these kids to get them into the level they want, and it's a case of coach can't make it. Okay, yeah. What's the problem? Oh, I've got a tutor tonight.
Yeah.
Right, okay, but we have this, this is every week, this is the same time.
Aye, this never changes.
Aye, like, come on. And this went on for months, and obviously it came to the point where I thought, right, you need to adapt your approach now.
Aye.
Because I was there on my own, really, really struggling. I had a 2-year contract. I thought, right, this isn't going to go for 2 years.
Aye.
No chance. I flew out on the day my niece was born, and I'm not seeing her grow up.
Exactly.
I've got my nephew as well.
Things only work out in the football sense.
I thought, what, I'm gonna try and see if I can adapt. And once I did that, everything opened up. It was incredible. I was doing language lessons when I was there, so I was learning a bit of the language, and you try to speak the language, but it's broken during sessions. But people love that, so I was it was fantastic. And then probably the friendliest people you could meet.
Yeah.
As soon as I started to bend a little bit and compromise and see where they were coming from, it was, we'll take you out for dinner, and just had the best time. I absolutely loved that. Obviously I flew out there in January the 3rd, I was saying, in March, COVID.
Oh, is that right? Is that when you went? Was it?
So that was tough on lockdown, and it's so strict over there.
So did they have similar rules to what we had here? Was it pretty much a kind of lockdown over there, enforced?
Oh, it was complete lockdown.
Oh, was it?
I mean, I'm talking police barricades on streets.
Oh, really?
I went out for a jog and got stopped from the police, and threatened with arrest if you were seen jogging again.
Is that right?
It was, you couldn't go out at all.
I see, that must have been tough, and especially when you're over there, you're going and trying to start a career pretty much in a different country where you don't speak the language, you're on your own.
That's it. You made the sacrifices, and you've went over there, and you're thinking, I was doing well at Dundee. And
Yep.
You're thinking, I'm back to square one here.
If I made a mistake here, is it? Yeah.
You're thinking this probably isn't going to work out.
Yep.
But it was tough. It was tough. Like I say, it was really, really strict lockdown. It got to the point where my boss says to me, "Look, just go home. Like, well, you'll still be employed."
How far was that into it?
So this was in May.
Right.
So this was in May. So he says to me, "Look, just go home. We need to get your visa stamped anyway, all the rest of it. So this is a good chance to do it because you're working online, you're working on Zoom." So cool, right, no problem. So I was back home, working on Zoom. I was sitting there, right, it's been a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and it got all the way from May right through till August. Still nothing. And I got a call, right, you're going. I was like, perfect.
Yeah.
So I packed the bag, jumped on the plane. I'm sitting there, and it's the most surreal. I'm sitting there in Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, had my laptop up, a couple of hours to the flight. Biggest airport in Europe. So I'm thinking, I'm not thinking at all. And I hear over the tannoy, can Mr. Kurt Herd come to gate 14? Nah, it's definitely not me. I mean, it's definitely, there'll be another Kurt Herd.
Yeah.
I would. So it happened again. So I checked my ticket. Okay, well, that's where I'm meant to be. Right. Okay, let's go. So I'll go to the gate, and it was boy standing. He's like, "I'm really sorry, but the government aren't going to let you in.
Oh, really?
You need a certain pass,
visa or something."
Aye. So I was like, no. So for my boss, he was like, "Look, I didn't know this was the case. I'm so sorry." I was like, "Right, okay. Well, what do we do now?" "Well, there's a flight to Edinburgh in an hour. Can you get on that?" So, well, I can, but my luggage and stuff.
Aye.
So the boy's like, "Nah, don't worry, I'll get your luggage off. Don't worry. Just you go to the gate." Perfect. Right, okay, thank you very much for that. Get to the gate, ripping sweat, get on the flight, get off at Edinburgh, and I'm standing at the carousel waiting. bag's not coming. Bag's not coming. I was like, you're winding me up. So it was me back home again, working from home, no clothes, nothing. And that went on for another 4 or 5 weeks. Then I finally got back over, but it was just lockdown after lockdown. And I just thought to myself, you know what? It's not what I thought it was going to be, and I'm really struggling with being on my own. I love it, but there's only so much you can cope with.
It is. It's difficult, especially when you've not got somebody even to kind of bounce off or turn and have a chat with.
Especially, it was so authoritarian over there. Like I said, I was going for a jog, and it was a case of, you can't go for a jog. All the gyms were closed, and that's sort of my releases. Try to go for a run, try to keep fit.
Yeah.
And instead, I just found myself watching Netflix, and I can't do this. So that I had to call time on that, and I came home, and like I was saying to you, I was sort of rattling about the house, probably annoying everybody, and didn't see a way back into the game at all. Didn't know what I was going to do. Speaking to different people and just trying to network, try to get an idea of what my next move can be. Obviously, it wouldn't have been abroad because the situation. And my friend works with Jim McNally at Peterhead, and I got in contact with him and says, look, would Jim mind if I came up and just watched training? And got back to me straight away. Says, Jim's, says, aye, no problem at all, up you come. So that was it. I went up to Peterhead training and was made to feel so welcome from Jim and the players. It was brilliant. And just standing on the side of the pitch and speaking to Jim about the game at the weekend, or speaking to Jim about the training session itself, just felt so good to be back involved.
Just involved,
incredible. Because at that point, like I say, you're sitting there and you're saying, am I even going to get back in here? Or, there was junior clubs on the phone, but I've backed myself to work at a level that I really want to kick on. I really want to keep pushing, and I wasn't wanting to go back to the juniors where you're working all day and then you're off to the training at night. And, you're out of pocket, you're not getting paid, but you've invested in all these coaching badges and things like that. So that experience at Peterhead and it just totally revitalised me. I felt so good and so grateful to Jim and Peterhead, the players at Peterhead, for welcoming me as well. So grateful for that. And off the back of that, it was I seen that Livingston were after a coach and put my name in, got a phone call off Stuart Garden, the goalkeeping coach, who said, we've got your CV here, and Dougie Emery's really keen to get you in. I thought, finally, here we go. I could be onto something here.
Yep.
And that was it. Sat down with Dougie, Marvin and Derek, the secretary. Had a chat, and Dougie came back and says, look, really, really impressed, really, really happy with what you can offer. I think what we can offer you as well. Just great for both parties, and that was it. So at Livingston with the 16s now.
Good.
Which is brilliant. It's obviously working off a clean sheet. They just started the academy up again after I think it was 6 years. It shut down when they went down into League One. So it's just started up again. It's fantastic though, really, really good. Absolutely loving my time there. It's just good to be back involved again.
Brilliant.
Because like I said earlier on, football's everything.
Aye, I know, and as you say, like, I think the point you're putting across, obviously, about investing everything into it, that's where your passion is. That's what you want to do. So a great opportunity.
Aye, no, absolutely. It's a fantastic opportunity, and you find that it's one of those, isn't it? As soon as you're in there, things start to open, and you're always networking, and hopefully now that's I took a gamble with Malaysia. I took a gamble with Australia. That paid off. I took a gamble with Malaysia. Unfortunately, that never paid off quite as much. But
it's an experience. It's something you learn from it.
It was, what an experience. Friends for life, and socially, I've came on so
massive,
much.
Especially I think doing it at a young age. I went out to America when I was maybe 23 maybe, so a wee bit older, but still dead young. And I think ultimately it opens up your eyes to maybe different cultures, different ways of living, and also having to make friends and make connections with other people because you're on your own. You've not got your pals there, or your mum or your dad or whoever it is to obviously turn to if you're in need. You're there. You're miles and miles and miles, thousands of miles away. So it's a big step, eh?
It's brilliant. Yeah. It was huge, and even just small things. I mean, I'm far from being the best at expressing myself or being able to communicate how I feel and things like that. And when I was here, it used to be alcohol, and because I couldn't express how it, so I'd have a drink and then I would be able to. But then I was over there, and boys would be like, right, we're going to go to the pub. I said, perfect, cool. Sit there maybe 2 or 3 pints, and they'd be like, right, we're going to go up the road.
What? We're out for the night.
Like, what? People do that here.
Is that right?
Can you do that?
Aye.
And they're like, nah, 2 or 3 pints up the road, aye. I'm sitting there going, alright, okay. Waking up the next day, I'm not feeling awful. I mean, I've had a decent night the night before.
Yeah.
Saying, this thing could catch on.
Aye. It's a different culture though, and I've spoken about that before, about how, like, here, we sort of... in fact, I knew a guy who basically said, I don't really like drink, I hate the taste of it, I just like being really drunk. And do you know what I think? That there's a culture like that. Like, people just drink to get drunk or to forget about things, or we drink for every reason. We drink to celebrate, we drink to commiserate, we drink if there's a birthday, we drink if there's a funeral, we drink for everything. It's a culture here, isn't it? I
know. And it's... People were I was trying to explain it to people over there, and they couldn't really comprehend it. So, you drink and you don't remember anything. Basically, that's what people do, yeah.
I remember singing Dolly Parton in a karaoke after that.
Aye. So, no, I mean, even that side of it for me was, I've came back now and I love that. Go for a couple of pints with my mates. I'll have a couple of pints, I'll watch the football, go up the road.
Up the road.
I would never do that before. I opened my eyes to so much. Really, really grateful for that experience.
Aye. It was funny. See, when you were saying about the tannoy announcement, that just reminded me. We were away. Where were we? Albufeira or something like that. I think we went away just a kind of boys thing. Might even have been a stag do. And when we were on the way back, there was a tannoy announcement. It was like, the real Slim Shady, please stand up. So obviously somebody got a hold of the mic. That's what I thought we were going to say. One of your mates had grabbed it.
No, honestly.
No, actually, it was for you to tell you.
Genuinely sitting there, the biggest airport in Europe. The name gets called over the tannoy. I'm thinking, there must be another Kurt Herd then, because there's no way that's for me.
So these boys had got hold of the mic because they were at it for ages, and I don't know if they've maybe went and hid with it because they kept shouting stuff over. Every so often there would be a wee announcement. You tell the wee bing bing, and then there'd be an announcement. Honestly, you could see people running all about the place trying to find it where they were with the mic. So I thought that was maybe going to be one of them. So you just briefly went on to touch about that there. So obviously you were saying about not being able to express yourself and maybe alcohol being something that you turn to, which is a very, very common coping mechanism, shall we say, like in Scotland in particular, innit? We turn to that. So is there things that have happened that have caused that for you, or is there anything in particular that's been an issue in terms of that?
I think being a coach and going to coach, ex-pros and, like I say, ex-youth internationals, people older than me, you've always got to sort of have this bravado, and you've got to, not only that though, but you're also the guy that people look to, and, you can't really afford to be, you can't show any weakness, really. So for me it was always about, football, I would always keep facing, I would always stay strong, and I would always be that guy. And if you ever see me at training, if you ever see me at football, I'm the guy that's rolling around with the boys, and what I mean, little jokes, and in the middle of the changing room after the game, jumping up and down, all that sort of stuff. But it was a great thing though. I watched the Bobby Robson documentary, and there was a wee thing on it, sort of like who motivates the motivator. And it was sort of like that for me, where I was like, right, these boys know that, they can all come to me. Who can I go to? And I'm thinking, who do you go to? And at that point, I never had a clue. Didn't know. So it used to be for me, right, go and have a drink, and inevitably when you're drinking, you let it all out. Naturally. And it's just been, I've more recently I've lost a few friends to suicide, unfortunately. One of those occasions, it was one of my best mates who I got a phone call on New Year, 10 minutes past midnight, to say Lewis has been out the house since the back of 9. I wasn't getting back at that. Typical, right? Okay, no worries. I'd never one for celebrating New Year anyway.
Yeah.
So just as well. So I jumped in the car, drove down to the pub. I thought that's where he'll be.
Yeah.
Wasn't he there? So I'm racking my brains. I'm going, right, okay. So I drove past his mum and dad's house. Wasn't he there? Okay, right. So I'm just driving around all this sort of, because now you're thinking the worst. So I'm driving around the places that, the Tay Bridge and things like that. And I'm thinking, right, see if I could find him. Can't find him, right? Remember that I'd seen him 4 days ago. He was at the park walking the dog. I thought it was a bit of a weird interaction. He wasn't really himself. It wasn't far from his mum and dad, so I thought, right, you know what? I'll swing past his mum and dad's anyway, because they'll be up and they'll be worried. I'll go past that park on the way. And as I've pulled in, I've seen his car, and I've just thought, fuck, what do you do? And I've just phoned. I said, look, tell the police I've got the car. And I was just pitch black, back at midnight on New Year's, just running around this park shouting his name. And a couple of minutes later, credit to the police, within 2 minutes I was swamped with blue lights. And his mum and dad arrived, and we all split up into different groups to try and find them. And I just remember hearing a noise that I would wish for anybody to hear, and it was his mum had obviously just been told that they've just found him. So hearing that noise, I've ran over and seen his mum and dad. They're in tears and they've told me what's happened. And for weeks after that, sleeping with the light on, couldn't be in dark. I was living on my own at that point.
Yeah.
But I couldn't be in darkness. Had to sleep with the lights on and all that sort of thing. But I can't be inactive. I've always got to be active. So I was, I was still in work the next day, and I just went. Nobody would have known. It was just regular.
And is that because if you'd been too still or been given time to yourself, then you might have struggled yourself to cope a bit with that?
100%. When you're sitting, I need to be stimulated. When I'm sitting there, you're sitting there with your thoughts, and you start to feel sorry for yourself, and something like that happens, you don't know what to feel anyway. I'm angry at me for what's happened. Do you get angry at him? What do you feel? And it was just so confusing and so overwhelming that I thought, I need to be active. So like I said, I was straight back into work, but in between all that, it was bottles of red wine to help me sleep, because I'm sleeping, but I've got the lights on, and every time I close my eyes, you're hearing that noise and you're seeing it, and it's horrendous. Yeah. So I was put on all sorts of medication and given people to talk to and all these things, but I think unless you've been in that situation, it's so difficult to explain. Even now, I can't really explain it. The sound of that noise or how I felt when I seen the car and things like that. So yeah.
Listen, I'm really sorry to hear. Obviously, you went through that, Kurt, because it can't be easy. Thinking like, because obviously these conversations are important, and something you said earlier on, which I think is a big part of trying to improve where we're at. We obviously how bad numbers for suicide are, especially in Scotland and especially with young males. But a big part of it, and you said that earlier, is I found it hard to express myself, and I would turn to drink. I would say 95% of males in Scotland would come up with the same thing, because we don't talk about it, and we don't have these conversations, and we don't speak about how we feel. So when it comes to actually trying to do it, people struggle because they don't know how to open up or who to open up to, or what if my mate, because as you said, like we most guys are in some sort of kind of sport environment, whether it be football, rugby, boxing, whatever it is. They're kind of macho environments. So the best kind of coping mechanism, if you like, to deal with stuff like that is to have a joke about it, laugh it off, and let's go and get a pint. So it's no, have you sought help? Have you spoke to him? Is there somebody there to support you? So these conversations never really happen, do they? No, certainly in my experience, it's not something that I've came across very often.
No, they don't. That's the problem, is that these, and I've been guilty of it myself before in the past as well. Like I say, you go on the drink and, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That'd be me for a couple of days or whatever, and what was the need in that? I could have just spoke to somebody and I could have just got it out. But yeah, it's having the ability to talk's probably the bravest thing anybody can do. When people do that, when people talk now, I can't praise them enough. When I see athletes or these people coming out in public about their mental health and being so honest and open about it, I think it's the strongest. That's the strongest you could possibly, strongest thing you could possibly have done. Sorry. And I guess now, from my experience of not being able to express myself as a coach, not just as a coach, for everybody in life, it's trying to recognise what these signs are. It's just unfortunate that the signs aren't, it's not across the board. It isn't a diagnosis, it isn't anything like that.
No, I think ultimately everybody's an individual, and like what somebody might show as a sign might not be somebody else's. Somebody might put out cries for help, somebody might not want people to notice that they're struggling. So everybody's different. It can be difficult to pick up the signs, but I think the biggest thing for me is that people know that there's help there. So and being able to open up and speak about it. So the likes, obviously, for what we do and what Back Onside do is massive in terms of being able to have these conversations like what we're having just now, being able to share that and knowing that obviously through Back Onside there are supports out there for people to open up. And I think credit to obviously yourself for coming on and speaking about that. Obviously you're talking about initially like your kind of upbringing, your role in coaching and all the rest, and how that's brought, because obviously so your connection to Back Onside, because you said earlier on about how you knew about Back Onside before obviously we turned the mic on, and it was through
so I became aware of Back Onside through things that were going on with in the media through David Cox and all the rest of it some time ago, and then a good friend of mine did a charity 3K every day for a month for Back Onside. And also from there, Back Onside's grown immensely, and I was saying to Libby in the days leading up to this, the work that's done by Back Onside is huge. It's phenomenal. Speaking to people that it's helped. Jim let me in at Peterhead, and through that I got to meet Gary Fraser, and Gary's stories about what Libby and Back Onside have done for him, helping him with placements and helping him with work, and just knowing that there's a number in his phone that it's always pick up. There's always an answer, there's always help there, and just having that there, it's phenomenal. And it's good now to see things develop, clubs taking on the idea of Back Onside and what it's doing in terms of helping people. It's good to see the charity matches. It's obviously still, especially this time of year, like I say, speaking to Libby in the lead up to this, it was every time we would speak, it was call outs and it's busy and all these things, and the more that we can get it out there, and the more that it's good that people are phoning. It's
Of course it is.
absolutely brilliant.
I've said that to Libby before.
It's a strange thing to say, but I'm delighted. I'm delighted that there's, that Libby's so busy and there's
bad
quality.
that so busy and Libby's constantly getting phone calls. But the flip side to that is at least people are doing it.
Correct.
And it's a good sign that people are reaching out and people are asking for help rather than sitting in silence and struggling and not knowing or not wanting to reach out. So at least, alright, it's maybe not great and probably Libby will not get much sleep over it, but at the end of the day, at least people are making that connection and reaching out. So you're right, it is. It sounds like
that's a horrible thing to say,
it is,
but it's at the same time, we're going in the right direction with this. In terms of, making sure that people are getting the help that they need.
100%. Do you find, and taking it back to obviously the coaching side of things, and you're dealing with 16-year-olds, and this is something that's crept up in a few chats we've had, and obviously it's part of when the Back Onside Academy gets up and running, something that we'll look at. But obviously for young players coming through that pro youth setup, because you've obviously experienced that to a certain extent yourself growing up, and then obviously now as a coach you'll be able to see that, and you've obviously got a great mindset towards certainly you've got a great empathy with how maybe that could affect young players. So what do you think in terms of supports in place for young folk in going through football?
In terms of just now, that was the thing that stood out to me, and I didn't really have the knowledge of that until I'd went into junior football. And like I say, I'm taking these players that have played it in the Premier League at 17, 18. They've went and played it at Parkhead, they've went and played Ibrox, Hampden, these big games, and all of a sudden you're not wanted. You're down to the juniors, you're doing an apprenticeship and you're training twice a week at night. Obviously the money you're earning isn't there. You've not got people hanging on your coattails wanting to be your mate. Your mates go missing because you're not that professional football player anymore. But for me, these clubs have a duty of care, that's when my eyes were really opened to this, in terms of these kids were so, I don't want to say abandoned, but they weren't taught any life skills. They weren't taught anything that was required of them to then go out and do something in the world. They maybe sign professional terms at 16. To do that, you'd need to leave school. So they left school early to go and sign, taken out of education. They weren't given, these guys weren't put through. Bear in mind, these guys will train 90 minutes, 2 hours a day. There's time in the afternoon to put them through an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
There's time to put them through anything that they want. What do you want to be? Right, let's
help you towards that. Yeah,
let's fast track you through a course. It's night classes as well. We'll do something to help you, but that's not there. And from my experience with these guys in the junior, it was a lot of them were, I'd speak to them and ask them what they would do, and it would be bookies, or we just sit there and play the PlayStation all afternoon, because there wasn't even any guidance on, do you think that's the right thing to do?
Yep. I think that's a big thing that's missing, because there's got to be a kind of acceptance factor that of a team of, I don't know, say a squad of 20 maybe, kind of between 15 to 18, there's a very small percentage of them are actually going to get signed anyway, so there's got to be a bit of acceptance for that. And what I think more than anything is a bit you just hit the nail on the head there, guidance for right, okay, this might not be what's going to work out for you, but you need to realise that, and while you're still trying your very best to make it as a professional, here's some avenues that you might want to start exploring and opening them up to that, because I think that's the big thing. I think it's about guidance, because the kids have got to get resilience and they've got to get built up for that. They're not going to, I was listening to something, and they were talking about failure, and they were saying listen, failure's part of life, and without failure you'd never succeed. Most people who have got somewhere in life, you talk to all these big business entrepreneurs, top class, world class athletes, they've all experienced failure at every step, and that's what's made them build up. So it's not about you didn't make it or you failed at one point. But what it is about is how do you bounce back for that, and what else is there for you? And as you said, what about even speaking to these young guys about time management? Right, you've trained 2 hours a day. What are you doing with the rest of your day? Let's see if we can help you with that, and let's get you involved in something that can maybe help.
Well, that's the thing. Look, these guys are sitting there with money in their pockets that none of their mates have got because their mates are still at school. They're doing apprenticeships.
Yeah.
And these guys are sitting with money in their pocket and all this time. And I think the clubs just expect it of the players that and the parents. Well, the parents do have obviously a duty of care. I think you'd find most parents in sports and life in general, want the best, and they will push them towards.
Aye, definitely.
So I mean, the clubs really need to take more care with these things and put things in place. Like I say, you're training so few hours a day, a week, that you've got this time. Go and use it to. Even it doesn't have to be. It could be go and learn a language. It could be anything at all you want. But it's got to be. I mean, even now, I see guys that I used to coach that are playing 18s reserve team football on the verge of first team in the gym, and I'll speak to them. What are you doing? I'm just doing so and so. Right, okay, like, is that a programme you got from sports science or no? Just we just finished at 11 o'clock today, and I just came to the gym to kill. I'm like, they're not even getting guidance on that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's so neglectful to just have these kids in at such an impressionable age, and not use that. It's madness to me.
No, I know, and I think because what I was thinking about there was like when you talk about like even the sort of life skills. Do you know about like you're saying like earlier on, you just packed up, shipped it to Australia at 18 with no experience of living on your own, and you're in a completely different country, and it's not as if you're 5 minutes down the road, you're opposite side of the world, so you're just getting thrown in and you're having to learn all these things. And I think maybe I'm not saying that the kids have maybe got it easy because they've got their home comforts, they're 5 minutes, they've got the gym there. But do you know what I mean? It's like life's a wee bit and then all of a sudden if that gets taken away from them, they're like, whoa, what do I do now? So maybe it is a bit.
Some people do thrive in that though. Some people, like myself, I thrived in that, taking myself out, and I love putting myself in uncomfortable positions, or I love looking at,
It's where you learn.
What am I not good at?
I know.
And I go and, I've got a fear of heights, so I go walk in the house.
Yep.
Still scared of heights, it hasn't helped, but I'm better than I was 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's a deliberate attempt I'm never going to get it out of me, but it's a deliberate attempt to say, look, you've got control of this sort of thing.
Well, there's definitely a lot to be said for it, and it's certainly, but it's refreshing to hear somebody like yourself, Kurt, that's kind of had a lot of life experience. Obviously, even the story you're telling me about your mate. These are things that have obviously opened your eyes up to conversations that are missing, things that we can do to try and help younger folk. And I think, especially, football's the biggest sport in Britain, definitely, and in Scotland it's what most young guys turn to. A lot of young girls are doing it now as well. For a lot of adults that don't play football, it's their big thing. They work all week to go and watch their team at the weekend. Football's massive, so it's a great way to reach out to folk, and especially when it comes to mental health. It's massive. It's massive that we can use football as a sort of vehicle to try and get that message out there. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
it's huge, and it's great to see teams, professional clubs taking on board the Back Onside Academy and things like that. And you see now there's a lot more of mental health and well-being courses and things like that involved in the courses as you go through. Things that weren't there 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And it's great to see these things coming in, because like I say, as a coach, it's about trying to spot these, because you are in such an environment where not everybody's going to come and speak to you. So yeah.
Good. Listen, I sometimes ask a couple of wee questions, alright? So one of them is, what or who has been the most influential thing in your life? So it can be a thing, something that's happened, or it can be a person.
Catch me off guard here,
I like to throw these in. Just gives you a wee bit of thinking time.
Probably my granddad.
Right.
Probably my granddad.
What's the story there?
He was just everything. He was my best mate. He was my granddad. He was everything to me. So grew up with him. Every Saturday it would be me, him, my dad, my uncle at the football. Every Saturday without fail. And he would constantly. He didn't live far from the house. He'd always be around the house. But on a Sunday, I'd have my game on a Sunday, and believe it or not, I used to be a goal scorer. So I've got it now because he's passed away sadly, but I've got this notebook and he wrote down every goal. So he's got the opponent, the date.
Is that right?
How many goals I scored, and then he's got left foot, right foot, header, whatever the goal
Brilliant.
was, and I've got that right through till I was about 16. And yeah, it was just phenomenal. It doesn't matter what I did, it was always a pat on the back, and he'd be away telling his neighbours and telling my uncle and telling everybody that, yeah, it was, and I'd go home and my dad would be like, you were awful today. Can't believe how bad you are. Come on with that pass. And my granddad's like, aye, but you still tried it. You know what I mean? And he was just phenomenal. Funny man. And I ended up running the Edinburgh Marathon for him after he passed. Yeah. Again, it was one of those things. How would you cope with something like that?
Yeah.
And for me, it was keeping active, and so started running long distance and to try and help myself. And I thought,
relate to that. That's my thing. I just run for miles.
Just run. Yep. Just talk to yourself and play a lot of games in your head. And
no music. I just get my trainers on and run.
It's brilliant, isn't it? So I thought, you know what, I'm doing this. I'd be well doing something for it. So signed myself up for the Edinburgh Marathon and raised £1,000 for SAFA, which was brilliant. I was class. So 100% my granddad. He was everything to me.
My granddad, he used to come to my football and he's a smoker, and I reckon he could have probably every one of my goals in the back of one fag packet. I was a goal scorer, mate.
Still play striker though?
No. Right, so that's the question. The next one I was going to ask you is, what is the best bit of advice you've ever been given? Best piece of advice anybody's ever given you?
Don't be scared of failure. The only failure is never to try.
Spot on.
Yeah, I like that. And it's not even a bit of advice, it's from a song.
Is that right?
It's from a song, aye. So it's from
Just never forget it.
It's from a song, yeah. So,
what's the song?
Passenger. It was Passenger. I forget what the name of the song is now though.
Alright, so it's not your karaoke one, is it? No.
Oh no, you always go Neil Diamond or Frank Sinatra. But
oh dear.
I did karaoke the other week and I went Forever in Blue Jeans. I thought I'd play it safe. Crowd pleaser.
That's alright. I don't mind that song.
Crowd pleaser.
Forever in Blue Jeans. I used to think he was singing something else. I can't remember what it was when I was a wee boy. Every time I heard that, I thought he was singing something else.
You can give me anything on the karaoke as long as the screen's there. I'm fine.
How'd you go for it? Do you?
Oh, you?
Aye.
I'll give it a go.
Oh, I'm a 5-pinter before I get in the karaoke, and I don't even really drink anymore. So you'll struggle to catch me in a karaoke.
See, I just blank out, pretend I'm in the car.
Well, so my last question then is. What is my last question? What is the one thing that you would not kind of, or what's your one rule that you would always go by? Right. So what would you not kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Non-negotiable. Your kind of non-negotiable thing. What would you never compromise on? That's what it is.
From myself.
Aye. Or from other people.
Just 100%. Just 100% at everything.
Just give it your all.
Just honestly 100%. Don't half-arse anything. If I'm going for a run, I'll give it 100%. I've met football after being at work for 12 hours before that.
Yep.
Still 100%. It's everything is just full throttle, and I'll deal with what comes, the aftermath of that when I get home to bed.
Mm-hmm.
But no, and follow your passion. It's again, that's non-negotiable for me. I'd say that to anybody is follow your passion. That's what I'm doing just now with football, and I wouldn't. There's been a few times where I've been offered jobs and things like that, and it's but the football might come in. Well, if football comes in between that, then it's not for me. I'm sorry. You know, I'll always follow my passion right through.
I like that, mate. Been a great chat. What I will say is, obviously, we touched on something that is quite probably emotional for some people. So if anybody does listen to this and does feel as though they're it's struck a wee chord with them and they might need support, remember, obviously, Back Onside are there. You can check out the website. There's a phone number, there's a crisis line that you can get in touch with, and there is always support. So please, if that has affected anybody, please do get in touch. I must say, I really appreciate you being open, honest, and having that conversation with us. And I know some of that must have been quite difficult for you, but it's been a pleasure, mate.
That's been my pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity to come on here and tell the story, and like I said, massive well done and thank you for the great work that's going on behind the scenes at Back Onside.
Brilliant, mate. Really appreciate it, and I'll tell you what, I might have a big run coming up soon, so I might rope you into doing a few miles with me.
I've done myself in it.
Right, thanks very much, mate. Cheers.